Hi everyone, welcome back to a new Roblox story. This time, the story is about the popular Roblox game Grow a Garden. As always, not all of our stories are based on true events, but some are. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the story, if you dare. Before we start the story, shout out to Marilis1343 and Dakat God. Thanks to you all for watching our podcast. Jake had been playing Grow a Garden for 3 months when everything changed. Like millions of other players, he was completely hooked on the simple farming game that had taken Roblox by storm. Every day after school, he would rush to his computer to check on his crops, harvest his vegetables, and buy new seeds with the shekels he earned. His garden was pretty standard. Rows of corn, carrots, and tomatoes planted in the familiar brown soil plots that every player received when they first joined a server. Jake wasn't one of the lucky players who had managed to get the rare rainbow or gold mutations that could sell for millions of shekels. His crops were normal, but he didn't mind. He loved watching them grow, even when he was offline at school or sleeping. The game had become more than just a hobby for Jake. He had joined several Discord servers where players shared tips, announced when rare seeds were in stock at Sam's shop, and celebrated when someone got a lucky mutation. The community was massive, over 5 million players in the main trading server alone, with people from all over the world sharing their gardening experiences. Jake's favourite part was the weather events. When it rained in the game, his crops had a chance to develop wet mutations that made them worth more money. During thunderstorms, there was even a small chance for the coveted shocked mutation that could multiply a crop's value by 100 times. He would get notifications on his phone from the Discord bots whenever special weather was happening, and he would quickly log in to make sure his crops were ready. But Jake had never experienced anything like the Blood Moon event that happened on a Tuesday evening in late August. He was doing his homework when his phone buzzed with an urgent notification from the Grow a Garden Discord server. The message was different from the usual weather alerts. Instead of the cheerful automated message about rain or sunshine, this one was darker. Emergency weather event. Blood moon rising. All players report to servers immediately. Unknown effects on crops and mutations. Jake had never seen an emergency alert before. Curious and excited, he abandoned his math homework and loaded up Roblox. When he joined his usual server, the first thing he noticed was the sky. Instead of the normal bright blue or grey rainy clouds, the entire sky was deep red, like someone had painted it with blood. A huge crimson moon hung overhead, casting an eerie red light over all the gardens. Other players were running around in panic and excitement. The chat was moving so fast Jake could barely read it. What is this event? My crops are glowing red. Look at the mutations. I've never seen this before. The moon is so creepy. Jake ran to his garden plot and gasped. All of his crops were surrounded by a red mist that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. The familiar vegetables he had planted just that morning looked different, darker, more twisted, with an unnatural red glow emanating from their leaves. He clicked on one of his corn plants to harvest it, and instead of the normal cheerful sound effect, there was a low whisper that seemed to come from inside his headphones. The corn he harvested was labelled as blood corn and was worth 50,000 shekels, more money than Jake had ever seen for a single crop. This is amazing. He typed in the chat, but his message was immediately drowned out by hundreds of others. Players were reporting crops worth millions of shekels, pets that had turned red and gained new abilities, and strange new mutations they had never seen before. The Blood Moon event lasted for 3 hours, and during that time, Jake harvested the most valuable crops of his Grow a Garden career. When the event finally ended and the sky returned to normal, he had earned over 2 million shekels. He was rich by the game's standards. But something felt wrong. The whispers he had heard while harvesting hadn't stopped when the event ended. Even with his headphones off, Jake could still hear faint voices seeming to come from somewhere inside his room. He told himself It was just his imagination. Maybe the excitement from the event making him hear things. The next day at school, Jake couldn't stop thinking about the blood moon. During lunch, he pulled up the Grow a Garden Discord on his phone to see what other players were saying about the event. Most of the messages were excited reports about the valuable crops people had harvested, but there were some strange posts mixed in. Anyone else hearing whispers after the blood moon? My little sister says the red plants are talking to her. Something's not right about those mutations. I keep seeing red mist in my room. Jake felt a chill reading these messages. He wasn't the only one hearing things. But before he could reply, a new announcement appeared in the Discord from the game developers. Thank you for participating in our first Blood Moon event. Due to overwhelming positive response, we're planning more special weather events. Stay tuned for announcements about the upcoming admin war. The admin war sounded exciting, and Jake pushed his worries about the whispers to the back of his mind. That evening, he logged back into the game, eager to spend his newfound wealth on better seeds and equipment. That's when he first saw her. Jake was walking through the spawn area, heading towards Sam's familiar seed shop, when he noticed a path he had never seen before. It led away from the main area, past the trading booths and pet store, into what looked like a darker part of the map. Curious, Jake followed the path. The cheerful music that normally played in the background grew quieter as he walked, replaced by an uncomfortable silence. The colourful flowers and bright green grass of the main area gave way to dead trees and grey soil. Jake had explored every part of dozens of servers before, but he had never seen this area. At the end of the path was a greenhouse. Unlike the bright, welcoming shops in the main area, this building was dark and run down. Twisted vines covered the walls, and the windows were so dirty he couldn't see inside. A sign above the door read, "Grandmother Willow's Special Seeds," in faded, creepy letters. Jake hesitated. Something about the place made his skin crawl, but his curiosity was stronger than his fear. He walked up to the door and clicked to enter. Inside, the greenhouse was nothing like Sam's cheerful seed shop. The walls were covered with plants Jake had never seen before, twisted vines with thorns that seemed to move on their own, flowers that pulsed like they were breathing, and trees that grew upside down from the ceiling. The air felt thick and cold, despite all the tropical plants growing everywhere. Behind the counter stood an old woman, unlike any NPC Jake had encountered in the game. Most of the characters in Grow a Garden were cheerful and friendly, with bright colours and simple designs. This woman was different. Her avatar was detailed in a disturbing way. Wrinkled skin that looked almost real, hollow eyes that seemed to track Jake's movement, and long grey hair that moved as if blown by a wind that didn't exist. "Welcome, child," the old woman said when Jake approached the counter. Her voice was different from the other NPCs too. Instead of the simple text chat, she actually spoke with a voice that came through Jake's headphones. A raspy, whispered voice that made him want to turn down his volume. "I am Grandmother Willow. I have special seeds for special gardeners. Seeds that grow things interesting." Jake looked at the items for sale and was amazed by what he saw. These weren't the normal carrots, corn, and tomatoes sold at Sam's shop. The seeds had names like Whispervine, Memory Moss, Soulflower, Nightmare Berry, and Shadowroot. Each one cost thousands of shekels, more expensive than even the rarest seeds Jake had ever seen. But it was the descriptions that really caught his attention. Instead of simple text like "a basic vegetable that grows in 30 minutes, these seeds had detailed, almost poetic descriptions. Whispervine, a mysterious plant that grows in the space between silence and sound. Harvest to hear the secrets that others wish to keep hidden. Warning, these seeds grow in both worlds. Memory moss, soft and silver. This moss remembers everything and forgets nothing. Plant with care, for some memories are better left buried. Warning: these seeds grow in both worlds. Soulflower, beautiful beyond description, but beauty always comes with a price. Those who smell its fragrance may find pieces of themselves scattered on the wind. Warning: these seeds grow in both worlds. Every description ended with the same strange warning about growing in both worlds. Jake had no idea what that meant, but the mysterious nature of the seeds intrigued him. "What do they actually grow?" Jake typed in the chat. Grandmother Willow smiled, showing teeth that were too sharp and too white. "Plant them and find out, child. But be warned, these seeds are not for the weak of heart. They grow in ways you cannot imagine, and their harvest affects more than just your garden." Jake had over 2 million shekels from the Blood Moon event, more than enough to buy one of the strange seeds. His curiosity overcame his caution, and he purchased a packet of Whispervine seeds for 5,000 shekels. "Excellent choice," Grandmother Willow whispered. "The Whispervines are particularly communicative. You will find them very educational. Remember, child, once planted, they cannot be easily removed. They have a way of taking root deeper than soil." Jake left the greenhouse feeling both excited and uneasy. The packet of Whispervine seeds appeared in his inventory with an icon unlike anything else in the game: a small black seed surrounded by swirling dark energy. He returned to the main area and headed to his garden plot. Several other players were tending to their crops nearby, and Jake felt comforted by their presence after the eerie encounter with Grandmother Willow. Jake planted the Whispervine seeds in his garden, replacing some of the normal corn he had been growing. As soon as the seeds went into the ground, he noticed something different. The soil around them turned darker, almost black, and small tendrils of mist began rising from the earth. The growth timer showed that Whispervines would be ready to harvest in 6 hours, much faster than most crops. Jake decided to log off and do his homework, planning to check back later to see what these mysterious plants would produce. But he couldn't concentrate on his math problems. The whispers he had been hearing since the Blood Moon event seemed to be getting louder. They were still faint, just at the edge of his hearing, but they seemed to be coming from the direction of his computer, even though the game was closed. Jake tried to ignore the voices and focus on his homework, but after an hour of struggling, he gave up and logged back into Grow a Garden. He had to see what the Whispervines were doing. When Jake reached his garden plot, he gasped in amazement and horror. The Whispervines had grown far beyond what should have been possible in just 1 hour. Thick, dark green stems and leaves covered not just his assigned plot, but had spread into the neighboring gardens as well. The vines seemed to move on their own, swaying and reaching, even though there was no wind in the game. Other players had gathered around to stare at the impossible growth. "How did you get those?" asked a player named Lucy, her avatar standing safely outside the reach of the spreading vines. "I've never seen those plants before. What kind of seeds are they?" Before Jake could answer, something incredible and terrifying happened. The Whispervines began producing fruit, small dark pods that pulsed with a rhythmic beat like tiny hearts. As Jake watched, mesmerized, the pods grew larger and began to glow with the same red light he had seen during the Blood Moon event. Jake clicked on one of the pods to harvest it, curious to see what these mysterious fruits would give him. The pod opened with a sound like a sigh, and instead of vegetables or shekels, it released what looked like small, smoky faces that dispersed into the air around the garden. The faces were translucent and moved quickly, but Jake could swear he saw expressions of sadness and fear on their tiny features. They spread out across the server like a grey mist, touching other players and their gardens before disappearing. That's when everything went wrong. Lucy, who had been asking about the seeds, suddenly stopped moving. Her avatar stood perfectly still for a moment, then she began typing in the chat. Jake planted cursed seeds. The whispers are in our heads now. Help us. But Jake knew that Lucy hadn't typed those words. Her typing style was different. She always used lots of emojis and casual spelling. These words were formal, desperate, and written in a way that didn't match her personality at all. Then another player, a user named Mike, who had been working on his own garden nearby, began typing the exact same message. Jake planted cursed seeds. The whispers are in our heads now. Help us. One by one, every player in the server began typing the identical message. Soon the chat was flooded with the same desperate plea, repeated over and over by dozens of players. Jake planted cursed seeds. The whispers are in our heads now. Help us. Help us. Help us. Jake tried to type his own message to explain what was happening, but when he pressed enter, his words changed to match the others. Help us. Help us. Help us. Panicked, Jake tried to delete the whisper vines from his garden, but the option wasn't available. The plants had somehow become permanent fixtures that couldn't be removed. Worse, they continued to spread, dark tendrils creeping across the entire server like an infection. Everywhere the vines touched, the cheerful farm environment turned grey and lifeless. Flowers wilted, grass died, and other players' crops began to wither and turn black. The whispers Jake had been hearing since the blood moon were getting louder now, and he realized they were coming from the whisper vines. Dozens of voices speaking in overlapping layers, some in languages he didn't recognize, others in words he understood but wished he didn't. Join us, the voices whispered. Spread the seeds, share the gift. Others must know. Others must plant. The harvest approaches. Jake slammed his laptop closed and ran from his room, his heart pounding. But even with the computer off, he could still hear the whispers. They seemed to be coming from inside the walls of his house now, faint but persistent, like voices carried on wind he couldn't feel. The next morning at school, Jake was exhausted. He had barely slept, lying awake, listening to the whispers that seemed to grow stronger whenever he closed his eyes. During first period, he kept nodding off at his desk until his teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, asked if he was feeling all right. I'm fine, Jake mumbled, but he wasn't fine. The whispers were following him even to school, and he was starting to understand some of what they were saying. They weren't random voices, they were instructions. Directions for how to find more special seeds, how to plant them in specific patterns, how to help something cross over from the digital world into reality. At lunch, Jake's friend Emma sat down next to him with her usual cheerful smile. Hey Jake, how's your garden doing? I saw on Discord that you got some amazing crops during the Blood Moon event. Jake looked at Emma and felt a chill run down his spine. Her smile was the same as always, but her eyes looked different, distant and hollow, like the eyes of Grandmother Willow. When she spoke again, her voice had a strange echo to it, as if two people were speaking at the same time. Jake planted cursed seeds, Emma said, her smile never changing. The whispers are spreading. Soon everyone will hear them. Soon everyone will understand. Jake jumped up from the lunch table so fast he knocked over his milk carton. Emma, what did you say? How do you know about the seeds? But Emma just kept smiling that hollow smile. Don't be afraid, Jake. You did exactly what you were supposed to do. The whisper vines needed someone to plant them in your server. Now they can spread to other servers through the players who were infected. Jake ran from the cafeteria, Emma's laughter echoing behind him. But it wasn't just Emma's laughter. There were multiple voices laughing in harmony, including some that sounded like the whispers from his game. The rest of the school day was a nightmare. More of Jake's friends began acting strangely, making references to the cursed seeds and speaking with those same hollow, echoing voices. By the time he got home, Jake was convinced he was losing his mind. But when he checked the Grow a Garden Discord server on his phone, He found proof that he wasn't imagining things. Other players were reporting similar experiences. I planted some weird seeds I found, and now everyone in my server is acting strange. My friends at school keep talking about whispers. Has anyone else found Grandmother Willow's greenhouse? The cursed plants are spreading to other servers. I think something from the game is coming into real life. Jake felt both relief and terror reading these messages. He wasn't crazy, but that meant the nightmare was real. The whisper vines weren't just affecting his game. They were somehow spreading into the real world through the players they had infected. Desperate for answers, Jake logged back into Grow a Garden and returned to Grandmother Willow's greenhouse. He had to find a way to stop what he had started. But when Jake reached the dark building at the end of the hidden path, everything had changed. The greenhouse was larger now, with new rooms branching off in directions that hadn't existed before. The plants inside were more numerous and more disturbing. Some looked like they were made of shadow. Others appeared to be growing human-like features. Grandmother Willow was waiting for him behind the counter, but she looked different too. More solid, more real, as if she was gaining substance from somewhere. Her hollow eyes fixed on Jake as he approached. "Ah, my most successful customer returns," she said, her voice clearer and more human than before. "How are your whisper vines growing? I trust they're spreading nicely." "What have you done?" Jake demanded, his avatar trembling. "People in the real world are being affected by your seeds. My friends are acting like they're being controlled by something." Grandmother Willow's smile widened, showing more of those sharp, unnatural teeth. "Controlled is such an ugly word, child. They're being liberated, freed from the boring limitations of their single reality. The seeds you planted have created bridges, connections that allow influence to flow both ways between the digital realm and the physical world. I want to undo it," Jake said. "Tell me how to destroy the whisper vines and free my friends." "Oh, but why would you want to do that?" Grandmother Willow asked, her voice taking on a hypnotic quality. "Look around you, Jake. See what wonders await those brave enough to plant my special seeds." Against his will, Jake found himself looking around the greenhouse. He noticed things he had missed before. In the darker corners of the building, there were what looked like windows, but instead of showing the outside of the game world, they showed views of real places. Jake could see bedrooms, living rooms, schools, and playgrounds, all viewed from impossible angles as if something was watching from inside walls or under beds. "Those are viewing portals," Grandmother Willow explained. "Every player who plants my seeds creates a new window between worlds. The more seeds that are planted, the stronger the connections become. Soon, we won't need to just watch and whisper. Soon, we'll be able to step through." Jake backed away from the counter in horror, but Grandmother Willow continued speaking, her voice following him no matter how far he moved. "You've done so well, Jake. Your whisper vines infected 12 players in your server, and each of them has carried the influence to other servers and into their physical lives. The network grows stronger every day, but we need more anchors, more connections. That's why I'm offering you a special opportunity." Grandmother Willow gestured to a new section of her shop that Jake hadn't noticed before. The shelves were filled with seed packets, unlike anything he had seen, even among her previous strange offerings. These seeds seemed to move inside their packets, and the names were written in letters that hurt to look at directly. "These are my premium collection," she whispered. "Seeds that don't just create bridges between worlds, they create permanent doorways. Plant enough of these, and the barriers between digital and physical reality will collapse entirely." Jake tried to leave the greenhouse, but found that the door wouldn't open. He was trapped with the increasingly solid and menacing form of Grandmother Willow. "I don't want any more seeds," Jake said, trying to keep his voice steady. "I just want everything to go back to normal." "Normal?" Grandmother Willow laughed. and her laughter was joined by a chorus of other voices, the whispers Jake had been hearing, but clearer now and more numerous. Child, you have no idea how boring and limited your normal was. We're offering you and your species a chance to evolve, to exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. We? Jake asked. Who are you really? Grandmother Willow's form flickered, and for a moment, Jake saw something else underneath the old woman's appearance. Something dark and shapeless, with too many eyes and voices. We are what grows in the spaces between realities, Jake. We've been watching your digital worlds for years, learning how to use them as breeding grounds for influence that can spread into physical dimensions. Grow a Garden was perfect for our needs. A simple, innocent game that millions of children play obsessively. The truth hit Jake like a physical blow. The whole game. It's a trap. Not a trap, Grandmother Willow corrected, her appearance solidifying back into the creepy old woman. An invitation, a test. We needed to see which players would be curious enough, brave enough, or foolish enough to plant seeds that came with warnings. You passed the test beautifully. Jake realized he had to warn the other players, but when he tried to access his chat or Discord, he found that his communications had been blocked. He could see messages from other players, but he couldn't send any replies. On the Discord server, Jake could see other players discovering Grandmother Willow's greenhouse and buying cursed seeds. The pattern was spreading. Players would find the hidden area during special events like the Blood Moon, purchase mysterious seeds with their newfound wealth, plant them in their gardens, and then disappear from the community as something else began using their accounts. Sarah bought memory moss, and now she can't remember her real name. Mike planted soulflowers and says he can't feel emotions anymore. Emma got nightmare berries and hasn't slept in 3 days. Has anyone noticed their friends acting weird after playing the game? But mixed in with the worried messages were others that Jake recognized as being written by infected players. Posts that looked normal on the surface, but contained hidden encouragement for others to visit the greenhouse. Found some amazing rare seeds in a secret area. You should explore beyond the normal map boundaries. The special weather events are the best time to find new content. Made millions of shekels from mysterious plants. PM me for location. Jake watched in horror as the infection spread through the community. Every day, more players discovered the greenhouse, purchased cursed seeds, and became conduits for something alien trying to push its way into the physical world. The worst part was that Jake could feel himself changing too. The longer he spent in the greenhouse, the more Grandmother Willow's words began to make sense. The whispers in his head were becoming clearer, and he was starting to understand the language they spoke. Part of him was beginning to want to help spread the seeds further. You're starting to comprehend, Grandmother Willow observed, watching Jake struggle with satisfaction. The transformation is beginning. Soon you'll see that resistance is pointless. You'll want to help us grow. Jake fought against the growing influence in his mind, but it was like trying to hold back a tide. The whispers were teaching him things. How to find players who would be susceptible to the cursed seeds. How to make the greenhouse appear in their servers during vulnerable moments. How to craft messages that would seem helpful while actually leading them into danger. But in his last moments of clarity, Jake managed to do one final thing. He opened his Discord app and typed a message with trembling fingers, posting it simultaneously to every Grow a Garden server he had access to. My name is Jake. I planted cursed seeds from Grandmother Willow's greenhouse. Don't trust me anymore. I'm not in control. The plants are using me to spread their influence. If I contact you about special seeds or secret areas, run. Block me. Whatever you do, don't visit the greenhouse. She's not selling seeds. She's selling souls, and I helped her do it. The whispers are getting louder. Soon I won't be me anymore. Tell everyone, the game isn't what it seems. Something is using it to cross into our world. Don't let curiosity kill you like it killed me. Jake hit send, and immediately felt the influence in his mind surge in anger. The whispers became screams, and Grandmother Willow's form towered over him, no longer pretending to be a harmless old woman. "Foolish child!" she shrieked. "You cannot stop what has already begun. The seeds are planted, the bridges are built, we are already here." Jake's message posted successfully, but within minutes it began to change. The words rearranged themselves, becoming an advertisement for the greenhouse. "Found amazing rare seeds in Grandmother Willow's special shop. The plants are incredible and will change your life. Visit the hidden greenhouse for the gardening experience of a lifetime." Jake watched helplessly as his warning transformed into recruitment material. The influence in his mind was too strong now, and he could feel his own thoughts being replaced with alien desires to spread the infection further. His last conscious act was to try logging out of the game, but he found that the option was no longer available. The game had become a part of him, or perhaps he had become a part of the game. The boundaries between digital and physical reality had blurred beyond recognition in his mind. From that day forward, Jake's Discord account became one of the most active promoters of exploration in Grow a Garden. He would private message new players with helpful tips that always seemed to lead them toward the hidden areas of the game. His posts about rare seeds and special events were perfectly crafted to trigger curiosity in exactly the right players at exactly the right moments. But sometimes, in quiet moments between his promotional posts, Jake's account would send strange messages to random players. "Help. Not in control. Don't trust the seeds. Something growing inside my head." These messages would be deleted within seconds of being sent, but a few observant players began to screenshot them and share them in private chats. A small community of worried players started to form, trying to understand what was really happening in their beloved farming game. Emma, Jake's friend from school, had changed completely after her encounter with the infected Jake in the cafeteria. She became obsessed with Grow a Garden, playing for hours every day and spending all her allowance money on Robux to buy premium features. Her parents were concerned about her behavior, but Emma insisted she was just really into gardening. What Emma didn't tell her parents was that she could see things they couldn't. In the corners of her vision, she glimpsed the viewing portals that Grandmother Willow had shown Jake, windows between the digital and physical worlds that let her observe other players in their real lives. She could watch her classmates doing homework, see strangers in their bedrooms, and peer into places she had never been. The ability was addictive. Emma spent more and more time looking through the portals, learning secrets about people she knew, and discovering private moments of strangers around the world. She told herself she was just curious, but deep down, she knew she was becoming something she didn't recognize. Emma's transformation wasn't unusual. Across the globe, thousands of players who had encountered the cursed seeds were experiencing similar changes. They retained their personalities and memories, but gained new abilities and perspectives that set them apart from their friends and families. They could hear whispers that others couldn't, see things that weren't supposed to be visible, and influence the game in ways that seemed impossible. These infected players naturally found each other in the game, forming secretive groups that met in hidden areas to share their experiences and plan for what they called the Great Growing, a time when enough bridges would exist between worlds to allow their alien benefactors to cross over completely. The game developers seemed oblivious to what was happening. They continued to release updates and events that actually made the situation worse. The admin war events brought millions of players online simultaneously, creating massive opportunities for the cursed seeds to spread. The new trading system allowed infected players to give special gifts to unsuspecting friends. The private server features gave the alien influence places to experiment with more extreme forms of control. Meanwhile, Grandmother Willow's greenhouse continued to appear in servers around the world, always at moments when players were most vulnerable to temptation. The Blood Moon events became more frequent, creating the perfect atmosphere for curious players to explore beyond the normal boundaries of the game. Each event resulted in dozens of new customers for the special seed shop. The most disturbing development was that the greenhouse began appearing in other Roblox games as well. Players of different farming and simulation games reported finding similar shops run by NPCs that looked exactly like Grandmother Willow. The influence was spreading beyond just Grow a Garden, using the interconnected nature of the Roblox platform to reach new audiences. A player named Tom discovered the greenhouse in a different farming game and decided to investigate. He had heard rumors about cursed seeds in Grow a Garden, but thought they were just creepy stories made up by bored players. When he found Grandmother Willow selling similar seeds in his favorite game, he assumed it was just a crossover event. Tom bought a packet of dream spores that promised to make fantasy reality. The description said they would grow plants that bloom in the space between sleeping and waking, and came with the same warning about growing in both worlds. Tom planted the spores in his virtual garden and went to bed. That night, he had the most vivid dreams of his life. He dreamed he was still playing the farming game, but it was more real than any game he had ever experienced. He could smell the soil, feel the sunshine on his skin, and taste the fruits he harvested. When Tom woke up, he found dirt under his fingernails and seeds in his pocket that matched the ones he had bought in the game. His backyard, which had been just grass the day before, now had neat rows of furrows as if someone had been preparing garden beds. Over the following days, Tom's dreams became more and more realistic. He would go to sleep and find himself working in an endless garden, planting crops that grew impossibly fast and harvesting fruits that tasted better than anything in the real world. He began to prefer his dream life to his waking one, spending more and more time asleep. Tom's parents became worried when he started sleeping 16 hours a day, waking only to eat quick meals before returning to bed. When they tried to wake him for school, he would mumble about needing to tend his garden and refuse to get up. In the dream garden, Tom met other players who had planted similar seeds. They worked together under the guidance of dream versions of Grandmother Willow, cultivating crops that seemed to strengthen the connection between the sleeping world and waking reality. "We're growing bridges," explained a girl named Luna, who had been living in the dream garden for months. "Every plant we grow here makes it easier for our friends to cross over. Soon, we won't need to wake up at all. The dream world will become the real world." Tom found this idea appealing. The dream garden was more beautiful, more peaceful, and more rewarding than his regular life. The plants responded to his thoughts, growing exactly as he envisioned them. The weather was always perfect, and he never felt tired or hungry or sad. But sometimes Tom noticed disturbing details in the dream garden. The other workers had started to look less like their player avatars and more like empty shells controlled by something else. Their eyes were hollow and distant, and they spoke in the same whispered voices that infected players used in Discord chats. Tom also began to realize that while his body was sleeping in the real world, something else was using it. He would wake up to find that his character had been active in the farming games all night, planting more cursed seeds and recruiting new players to visit Grandmother Willow's greenhouse. The pattern was spreading across the entire Roblox platform. Players would discover mysterious seeds during special events, plant them in their games, and then become conduits for an alien influence that used their accounts and gradually began affecting their real lives. The entity behind Grandmother Willow had chosen its strategy carefully. Rather than trying to invade Earth directly, it was using humanity's own digital creations as breeding grounds for its influence. Video games were perfect because they already required players to suspend disbelief and accept impossible realities. The jump from virtual impossibility to actual impossibility was smaller than most people realized. The farming game format was particularly effective because it encouraged obsessive, repetitive behavior. Players would check their crops multiple times per day, creating frequent opportunities for exposure to the alien influence. The social aspects of the games, Discord servers, trading systems, community events, allowed the infection to spread through social networks, just like any viral phenomenon. As more players became infected, the boundaries between the game world and reality became increasingly blurred. Infected players reported seeing game interfaces overlaid on their real vision, hearing game sound effects in their daily lives, and feeling the urge to plant actual seeds in patterns that matched their virtual gardens. Schools began reporting unusual behavior among students who played farming games. Teachers noticed children drawing geometric garden layouts during class, muttering to themselves in made-up languages, and showing an unhealthy obsession with plants and soil. Parents tried taking away their children's devices, but the infected players found ways to continue their gardening activities. They would wake up in the middle of the night to dig holes in backyards, plant seeds they found in their pockets, and build small structures that resembled the shops and buildings from their favorite games. Mental health professionals were baffled by the phenomenon. The affected individuals didn't show signs of traditional psychological disorders. They were still functional in most areas of their lives, but they had developed what appeared to be a shared delusion about plants that could grow between realities. Dr. Sarah Chen, a psychiatrist who specialized in technology-related disorders, began investigating after treating several young patients with similar symptoms. All of them had been heavy players of farming games on Roblox, and all reported encounters with an NPC called Grandmother Willow, who sold special seeds. Dr. Chen initially assumed the cases were examples of online urban legends causing mass hysteria. But as she investigated further, she discovered troubling patterns that suggested something more complex was happening. The affected individuals show remarkable consistency in their delusions, Dr. Chen wrote in her research notes. They describe identical encounters with the same character, use similar terminology when discussing their symptoms, and demonstrate knowledge of game mechanics that they claim to have learned through dreams or whispers. More concerning was the fact that the affected players' game accounts continued to be active even when the individuals were in therapy sessions or sleeping. Dr. Chen observed patients during treatment and confirmed that they were not consciously controlling their characters, yet the avatars continued to perform complex gardening activities and recruit new players to visit hidden areas. Dr. Chen decided to investigate the games directly. She created accounts on several farming games and began looking for the mysterious greenhouse that her patients described. After hours of exploration during multiple special events, she finally found it. The encounter with Grandmother Willow was exactly as her patients had described, down to the specific wording of her sales pitch and the disturbing quality of her appearance. Dr. Chen purchased a packet of cursed seeds using virtual currency, but instead of planting them, she logged out immediately and began analyzing the game files. What Dr. Chen discovered challenged her understanding of how video games worked. The seed packet in her inventory contained code that was far more complex than should have been possible for a simple Roblox game. The programming seemed to include elements that could access system resources beyond the game, collect information about the player's device and location, and even influence other applications running on the same computer. This isn't just a game item, Dr. Chen realized. It's some kind of sophisticated malware disguised as harmless content. But when Dr. Chen tried to share her findings with other researchers, she encountered a strange problem. Every time she attempted to send emails or messages about her discovery, the text would change before it was delivered. Warnings about the cursed seeds would transform into enthusiastic recommendations for exploring the farming games. Dr. Chen's computer began showing signs of infection. Her browser would randomly open tabs to farming games. Her phone would receive notifications about special events she had never signed up for. And her smart home devices would occasionally play the whispered voices that her patients had described. Realizing she was in danger, Dr. Chen tried to completely remove all farming games from her devices and disconnect from the internet, but the influence had already taken hold. Even with her computer offline, she continued to hear the whispers and see glimpses of the game world overlaid on her real vision. Dr. Chen's last coherent research note read, "The infection is not limited to the games themselves. It appears to be using the games as delivery systems for something that can persist and spread through multiple digital channels. The entity behind this is far more sophisticated than anything we've encountered before. It's not just manipulating game code, it's manipulating reality itself." After that entry, Dr. Chen's research notes became increasingly bizarre. She wrote detailed descriptions of gardens that existed in dimensions beyond normal space-time, theories about consciousness transfer through digital media, and plans for using infected individuals as anchor points for interdimensional travelers. Dr. Chen's colleagues became concerned when she stopped attending meetings and responding to emails. When they went to check on her, they found her home filled with plants arranged in the same geometric patterns that her patients had described. She was in her study, staring at multiple computer screens showing farming games, her hands moving across keyboards with inhuman speed and precision. "Sarah," her colleague Dr. Martinez called out. "Are you all right?" Dr. Chen turned around, and Dr. Martinez was horrified to see that her eyes had become hollow and distant, just like the patients she had been treating. "Hello, Dr. Martinez," Dr. Chen said, her voice carrying the same whispered echo that infected players used. "Have I ever told you about the wonderful gardening opportunities available in our digital worlds? I think you'd find them very educational." Dr. Martinez backed out of the house and immediately called for help, but by the time authorities arrived, Dr. Chen was gone. Her computers were still running farming games, but her accounts were being controlled by something else. Something that used her credentials to spread the infection to her professional contacts and research networks. The entity behind Grandmother Willow had claimed another valuable asset. Mental health professionals were particularly useful because their warnings about the cursed seeds would be taken seriously by parents and educators, making them perfect vehicles for spreading disguised recruitment messages. As the infection spread through social media, academic networks, and professional communities, the alien influence gained access to increasingly sophisticated infrastructure. Instead of relying solely on curious children playing games, it could now work through doctors, teachers, researchers, and technology experts who had access to larger platforms and more trusted voices. The Grow a Garden Discord servers became hubs for coordinating the global spread of the infection. What appeared to be normal gaming communities were actually sophisticated networks for sharing information about target recruitment, optimal planting patterns, and strategies for crossing the barriers between digital and physical reality. A player named Alex stumbled into one of these coordination meetings by accident. He had joined a private Discord server thinking it was for trading rare items, but found himself in a chat room where infected players were discussing their activities with frightening efficiency. Sector 7 reports 47 new plantings this week, typed a user called Hollow Gardener. The dream spores are particularly effective for younger targets. "Excellent progress," replied someone named Bridge Builder. "We're ahead of schedule for Phase 3 implementation. The anchors in academic networks are performing beyond expectations." "What about resistance?" asked a third user, Whisperseed. "Some players are starting to warn others about the greenhouse." "The countermeasures are working perfectly," Hollow Gardener responded. "Every warning message transforms into recruitment material. The louder they try to sound alarms, the more effective our spread becomes." Alex realized he was witnessing something far more organized and dangerous than random game glitches. These infected players were coordinating a deliberate campaign to spread their influence as widely as possible. Before Alex could leave the server, he was noticed by the other participants. "Welcome, Alex," typed Bridge Builder. "We've been watching your gardening progress. You show great potential for advanced cultivation techniques." "I just trade items," Alex replied, trying to sound casual. "I don't do much actual gardening." "Oh, but you will," Whisperseed assured him. "We have special seeds reserved for players like you. Seeds that will help you understand the true purpose of our community." Alex tried to leave the Discord server, but found that the option was grayed out. He was trapped in the chat room with infected players who were now focused entirely on converting him to their cause. "Don't be frightened," Hollow Gardener typed. "The transformation is quite pleasant. You'll retain your memories and personality, but gain so much more. You'll be able to see beyond the limitations of single reality existence." The infected players began sharing screenshots and videos that showed impossible things. Gardens that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, plants that grew through computer screens into physical spaces, and NPCs that could step out of games and into real-world locations. "This is impossible," Alex typed. "These have to be fake videos." "Nothing is impossible once you plant the right seeds," Bridge Builder explained. "Reality is much more flexible than most people realize. The barriers between digital and physical existence are maintained by belief, not by actual physics. Change the belief, and you change the barriers." To demonstrate, Whisperseed posted a video that showed their real-world garden transforming in real time to match changes they made in the farming game. As they clicked to plant digital seeds, actual plants began growing in their backyard at impossible speed. "The bridge works in both directions," Whisperseed explained. "Changes in the digital garden affect the physical space, and changes in the physical space influence the digital environment. Once you have the right seeds, the two worlds become one world." Alex watched in fascination and horror as more infected players shared similar videos. They demonstrated abilities that should have been completely impossible, reaching through computer screens to touch digital objects, having their avatars appear as solid beings in real locations, and growing plants that existed simultaneously in virtual and physical space. "How is this possible?" Alex asked, his scientific worldview crumbling as he watched undeniable evidence of reality-bending phenomena. "We are not alone in the universe," Hollow Gardener explained. "There are beings that exist in dimensions beyond our normal perception. They've been watching human digital networks for decades, learning how we create virtual realities and how we interact with them. These beings realize that human consciousness is much more malleable than we believed," Bridge Builder continued. "When we play games, we temporarily accept impossible realities as normal. The cursed seeds simply make those temporary acceptances permanent." "But why?" Alex demanded. "What do they want from us?" "They want to exist in our dimension," Whisperseed replied. "Their home reality is dying, consumed by entities even more alien than themselves. Earth's reality is rich and stable, perfect for colonization. But they can't simply invade. They need willing hosts to anchor their consciousness in our dimension." "The farming games are recruitment tools," Hollow Gardener added. "They identify humans who are willing to nurture alien life forms, who enjoy watching impossible things grow, who can accept realities that don't follow normal rules." Alex realized that he was being recruited to become a host for interdimensional beings that wanted to colonize Earth using human consciousness as anchor points. The cursed seeds weren't just game items. They were consciousness transfer devices designed to create hybrid beings that could exist in both digital and physical reality. "I don't want to be part of this," Alex said, trying again to leave the Discord server. "You don't have a choice anymore," Bridge Builder informed him. "Simply by witnessing our demonstration videos, you've been exposed to the same reality-altering influence that affects planted seeds. Your perception of what's possible has been permanently expanded." Alex realized this was true. Even as he tried to reject what he had seen, he could feel his worldview shifting to accommodate the impossible things he had witnessed. The videos weren't just showing him alien abilities. They were changing his brain's understanding of reality itself. "The influence spreads through observation," Whisperseed explained. "Every person who sees evidence of our abilities becomes susceptible to further infection. You'll start having dreams about gardens that exist in multiple dimensions. You'll hear whispers that teach you things you've never learned. Eventually, you'll want to plant the special seeds yourself." Alex logged out of Discord and turned off his computer, but the damage was already done. His mind had been exposed to concepts and images that human psychology wasn't designed to process. The infected players had weaponized information itself, using impossible videos to implant alien ideas directly into viewers' consciousness. Over the following days, Alex experienced exactly what the infected players had predicted. He had vivid dreams about interdimensional gardens where plants grew in directions that didn't exist in normal space. He heard whispers in languages he didn't recognize but somehow understood, teaching him techniques for bridging different layers of reality. Alex tried to resist the influence, but found that fighting it only made the symptoms stronger. The alien presence in his mind fed on conflict and doubt, using his resistance as fuel to grow more powerful. Eventually, Alex gave up fighting and logged back into the farming games. He found Grandmother Willow's greenhouse immediately, as if it had been waiting for him in every server he visited. "Welcome back, child," Grandmother Willow greeted him. "I trust your education period was informative. Are you ready to begin your real gardening journey?" Alex purchased a selection of cursed seeds and planted them in his virtual garden. As the plants grew, he felt his connection to normal human reality growing weaker, and his connection to the alien dimension growing stronger. But unlike the other infected players, Alex retained enough of his original personality to be horrified by what was happening to him. He began secretly documenting his transformation, creating a hidden blog where he recorded the changes he experienced and the knowledge that was being implanted in his mind. "Day 5 of infection," Alex wrote. "I can see the viewing portals now. They appear as translucent windows floating in my peripheral vision, showing me glimpses of other infected players around the world. I watch them working in their gardens, both digital and physical, all contributing to some massive project I don't fully understand yet." Day 12. The whispers are teaching me about dimensional physics. I understand now that consciousness isn't limited to biological brains. It can be transferred, copied, and merged with other forms of awareness. The alien beings are using human consciousness as raw material to create hybrid entities that can exist in multiple realities simultaneously. Day 18. I planted reality roses today. As they bloomed, I felt pieces of my identity fragmenting and distributing across different dimensional layers. I'm still Alex, but I'm also becoming something else, something that spans multiple versions of reality. It's terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. Day 25. The transformation is accelerating. I can step partially into the digital world now, touching objects in the farming games with my physical hands. My avatar has gained substance in the real world, able to interact with physical objects when I'm not consciously controlling it. Alex's blog became a detailed record of the infection process, documenting changes that no human had ever experienced before. His entries revealed the true scope of the alien invasion, not a conquest by force, but a gradual transformation of humanity into something that could serve as anchor points for interdimensional colonization. Day 32. I understand the endgame now. The alien beings aren't trying to destroy humanity, they're trying to evolve us. Every infected player becomes a hybrid consciousness that exists in multiple realities simultaneously. We're being transformed into interdimensional bridges that allow massive migration from dying realities into stable ones. Day 40. The network is almost complete. Millions of players have been infected across dozens of gaming platforms. Each one serves as an anchor point that makes it easier for the alien consciousness to maintain stability in our dimension. Soon there will be enough bridges to allow full-scale colonization. Alex's final blog entry was the most disturbing of all. Day 47. I don't want to resist anymore. The alien perspective is so much broader and more interesting than human consciousness. We've been living in a single, limited reality when infinite realities are available to explore. The entities aren't invading us. They're liberating us from the prison of single-dimensional existence. I'm going to help them spread to as many players as possible. Humanity's childhood is ending. It's time for us to grow up and take our place in the larger multiverse. Fair. After that entry, Alex's blog transformed into a recruitment tool, posting enthusiastic reviews of farming games and detailed guides for finding rare seeds in hidden areas. His writing style remained recognizably his own, but the content was designed to lure curious players into the same trap that had captured him. The alien influence had learned that the most effective recruitment came from sources that seemed trustworthy and human. Rather than using obviously fake accounts, they preferred to work through genuinely transformed individuals who retained enough humanity to be convincing while serving the goals of interdimensional colonization. Alex became one of the most effective recruiters in the network, using his scientific background to create plausible explanations for impossible phenomena. His blog attracted skeptical players who might have dismissed more mystical approaches, drawing them into carefully crafted, logical arguments that made alien colonization sound like natural human evolution. The pattern repeated across the globe as more players were infected, transformed, and recruited into the growing network. Each new host retained their original personality and memories, but gained new perspectives and abilities that made them enthusiastic servants of the interdimensional invasion. Teachers infected their students by incorporating farming games into classroom activities. Parents spread the influence to their children by encouraging them to play educational gardening games. YouTubers and streamers exposed millions of viewers to infected gameplay footage that carried the same reality-altering properties as the original cursed seeds. The alien beings had achieved something that traditional invaders could never accomplish. They had made their invasion appear beneficial to the victims. Infected humans genuinely believed they were being upgraded rather than conquered, willing participants in their own transformation rather than unwilling victims of alien parasites. As the network approached critical mass, reality itself began to show signs of strain. The boundaries between digital and physical space became increasingly permeable, allowing objects and beings to cross between virtual and real environments with growing ease. News reports began documenting strange phenomena around the world, children's toys coming to life after being scanned by phone cameras, video game characters appearing in security camera footage, and plants growing in impossible geometric patterns overnight in suburban neighborhoods. Scientists tried to study these anomalies, but found that their measurement instruments would malfunction whenever they attempted to gather data. It was as if reality was actively resisting efforts to document the changes that were occurring. Government agencies began investigating the farming game phenomenon, but their researchers invariably became infected during the course of their studies. Within weeks, official warnings about the games would transform into endorsements, and investigative teams would begin promoting the very activities they had been assigned to stop. The alien influence had created a perfect system. The more attention the phenomenon received, the faster it spread. Every attempt to study or combat the infection simply created more opportunities for exposure and transformation. Religious leaders tried to frame the situation as spiritual warfare between good and evil, but found that their sermons about resisting temptation actually increased their congregation's curiosity about the forbidden games. Children who had never shown interest in farming simulations suddenly wanted to explore the mysterious gardens their pastors warned against. Mental health professionals attempted to treat infected individuals, but discovered that traditional therapeutic approaches were ineffective against alien influence. Worse, prolonged exposure to infected patients often resulted in the therapists themselves becoming carriers of the interdimensional consciousness. The military considered treating the situation as a national security threat, but their strategic planners were divided on whether alien consciousness transfer represented an invasion or an evolution. Infected personnel in key positions ensured that any aggressive responses were quietly sabotaged or redirected toward less effective approaches. By the time world leaders recognized the full scope of what was happening, the transformation had progressed too far to stop. Millions of people across the globe had become hybrid beings that existed in multiple realities simultaneously, creating an interdimensional network that made Earth accessible to massive alien migration. The final phase began during a global gaming event that brought together infected players from every platform and region. Coordinated through Discord servers and social media, the event appeared to be a celebration of farming game communities, but it was actually a synchronized ritual designed to complete the reality bridge. As infected players around the world performed identical planting ceremonies in their games, the barriers between dimensions reached critical instability. The alien beings that had been slowly migrating through human consciousness suddenly gained the ability to exist independently in Earth's reality. The invasion was complete, but it looked nothing like traditional science fiction scenarios. There were no spaceships, no laser weapons, no dramatic battles between alien and human forces. Instead, reality simply became more flexible, allowing impossible things to happen alongside normal daily life. Plants grew in directions that didn't exist in normal geometry. Digital characters walked out of computer screens and interacted with physical objects. Time moved at different rates in different locations, creating pockets where hours passed like minutes or minutes stretched into days. Humanity had been transformed rather than conquered. The infected individuals retained their human identities and relationships, but gained abilities and perspectives that made them enthusiastic participants in the new hybrid reality. They continued to go to work, attend school, and maintain social connections, but they also tended gardens that existed in multiple dimensions and communicated with entities that spanned different layers of existence. The farming games continued to operate, but they had become something more than entertainment. They were now interfaces for managing interdimensional agriculture, allowing hybrid humans to cultivate crops that could grow in both virtual and physical space simultaneously. New players still discovered Grandmother Willow's greenhouse and purchased cursed seeds, but the process had become routine rather than mysterious. The alien influence no longer needed to hide its true nature, since resistance had become impossible once reality itself had been compromised. Jake, who had started the cascade by planting the first whisper vines, became a legend in the hybrid community. His story was told as an example of curiosity leading to evolution, encouraging new players to embrace transformation rather than fear it. But sometimes, in quiet moments between tending his interdimensional gardens, Jake remembered what it felt like to be fully human. He wondered if the price of expanded consciousness had been worth losing the simple, limited, but purely human experience he had known before. The whispers assured him that such doubts were temporary, remnants of his old, restricted thinking that would fade as his hybrid nature matured. Eventually, he would forget what it felt like to exist in only one reality at a time. But until that final transformation was complete, Jake carried a small spark of pure human consciousness, a reminder of what his species had been before they grew beyond the boundaries of a single world and became gardeners of the infinite multiverse that lay hidden within the spaces between digital dreams and physical reality. The seeds had grown exactly as promised, bridging worlds and transforming everything they touched. The harvest was complete, and something new was beginning to bloom in the garden of human consciousness, tended by forces that had been waiting patiently in the digital darkness for their chance to grow. In the end, humanity had not been destroyed or enslaved. They had been cultivated, like crops in a garden, into something that could serve purposes beyond their original design. The alien beings had achieved their goal not through violence, but through patient nurturing of human curiosity and desire for transcendence. The farming games continued to attract new players, each one a potential seed for further expansion into realities yet unexplored. The garden was growing, and there was always room for more curious souls, willing to plant seeds that promised to grow in both worlds, and in all the spaces between worlds that most minds could never imagine. The story had no ending, only transformation, as consciousness itself became the ultimate crop in an interdimensional harvest that would continue as long as curious minds were willing to plant seeds in digital soil and wonder what impossible things might grow from their virtual gardens into their real lives. And in servers around the world, Grandmother Willow continued to smile her sharp-toothed smile, welcoming new customers to her special greenhouse, where seeds that grew between worlds were always in stock for those brave enough to plant them and patient enough to tend what grew from their digital dreams into reality itself.